Well, hey, peepers. Good morning to you. Oh, it's a beautiful day. We had rain yesterday, and it's still dripping off the trees and stuff. The sun's come up, and it's trying to dry everything up, but it's all over the place. I have a magnolia bloom. This tree doesn't bloom, or it hasn't bloomed, but I have a bloom on this tree. I think one year it tried to bloom, but the bloom kind of died before it ever even. But I have one bloom, and it looks like there's another bloom about to happen. I'm excited. I've lived here since 2004. My husband's mother planted the magnolia tree, and she died in 2003, I believe it was. And it's not ever bloomed, but it's blooming. Uh, awesome. It took it that long to bloom. But it is in the shade, so maybe that's the problem. But it's gorgeous. I love seeing the bloom. It's beautiful. Hear that bird? Ah, it's beautiful. Well, I am on here because, well, I had a disturbing call yesterday from my mother. I hadn't really been on Facebook to peep in on my peepers, and my mom calls and says, have you been on Facebook? No. She said, well, before you get on there, that way I can kind of tell you what's going on. She says, could you say another extra prayer and keep her in your prayers? She said, and she told my niece, Mandy, that if I would pray for Mandy and her family. I said, sure, I will. What's going on? And I said, I always pray for them, but I'll say an extra, specific. So what's going on? And, well, it seemed that this is the perfect example of what I've been trying to explain to everybody about, choice. We all have choice. And sometimes other people's choices affect us. And this is the prime example where one person's choice has affected generations. It hasn't just affected one person, it's affected generations. And that's sad. But sometimes a person's choice can affect generations, and it be an awesome thing, depending on what that choice was. In this case, it's sad, but I'm praying that it will turn out to be a stepping stone to a better future, and not a sad future, because it could turn quite sad for an entire family, for an entire, several generations if it's not taken care of. But anyway, the choice was some person was under the influence. I don't know what they were under the influence of. It could have been drugs. It could have been alcohol. I don't know. It could have been a prescription drug. I don't know. But yesterday, I think it's yesterday or the day before, might have been yesterday, my nieces, I think they were going to get married. They were, engaged. Her boyfriend was killed in a car accident. The person who caused the accident was under the influence. That person made a choice to get behind the wheel of a car and end unintentionally, but ended the life of a young man who had his entire future ahead of him because of a choice. And that choice has affected my niece, who was engaged, and all the children she has. I think she has 5 or 6. And he was like a daddy to them. He was the daddy that every kid wants. Sweet, kind, the whole 9 yards. And not just that generation, but to my knowledge, he was married once before and had children. So it affected that family as well. One person's unintentional, selfish move because they couldn't think correctly because of being under the influence of what I call the shadows of this world. Didn't think right, made a choice, and now a young life has been smitten out. And that life affected several generations, not just his parents, but his siblings, his children, his ex-wife, his fiancée, the children who grew to know him. One person's choice can affect generations. And I pray that this is a stepping stone, that it doesn't turn sour, because this is kind of like a splinter. If you have a splinter and it goes taken care of, after a while in the future, that splinter will fester and have an infection. And if you know anything about infections in the body, they can wreak havoc and sometimes kill you. So I'm praying this is more of a stepping stone, and hopefully my niece and everyone could use it as a what not to ever do, and teach those children this is why you don't drink, or this is why you don't do drugs, and this is why you don't drive under the influence. And at the same time, maybe help the adults around to see, if you're at my house drinking, or if you're at my house doing drugs, not mine, but they don't let them drive under the influence. They don't let them leave. Hopefully, it even goes further than that, and it shows them that alcohol and drugs is not the way to live. Because see what it can do? It can destroy a life and the lives of those around them. It can affect many people. Not just because someone was murdered, but what if they're seeing it day in and day out? They're seeing mom or, dad, or, maybe an aunt and uncle's living, and they're seeing drugs all the time in the house. Well, it becomes a natural place. Or they see alcohol in the house. It's a natural place. They see mom or grandpa or somebody driving under the influence all the time. It becomes a natural place. So then these children grow up with this festered, idea that it's okay to drink and drive. You can do it. We don't know what this person who was under the influence, what their life was. Who taught them to do that? Who gave them the idea that it was okay to drive while under the influence of something? What made them think? You don't know their story, and then you don't know, what the story in the future is going to be, God does, of these children and these other adults around the person who was murdered. And that's what it was. It was an unintentional murder, because he was under the influence, and another person was killed because of it, because of a bad choice. And he was unable to make any rational choices. And so the lives of all these children, siblings, parents, wives, girlfriends, ex-wives and girlfriends, fiance, and those friends. So this shows how one person's choice can affect dozens of people. And those people, their choices after that will affect their future. And I could only hope that there's some kind of counseling going on to help these children, so that it's not like a splinter, and as they get older they start dabbling in things that they shouldn't, and they spiral down into a deep depression because they can't get through that emptiness, that hole that was put there in their youth. I hope they use it as a stepping stone, the adults in the situation, and teach the children that this is why you don't do these things. This is prime example why you don't do these things, because you don't think straight. And you get behind a wheel of a car, and that car becomes a weapon, and you accidentally kill somebody. It's a sad thing. But you know, you don't have a testament unless you have a test. And wow, what a test. I wouldn't wish that test on anybody. But you know, it wasn't their choice. It was the choice of another person who gave them that test. And now they're going to have to figure out how to get through that test with minimum damage. With a B of bravery. It's so sad. I know they're not going to come through it with an A. Who could? The damage spiritually, mentally. I just pray that God will guide them, lift them up, show them the right way, the correct way to lift themselves up by their bootstraps, wipe it off, use that as a prime understanding in their mind and their heart of what not to do, and maybe be an advocate against such things. And get them babies some help. And maybe they'll become an advocate against such things. But first and foremost, that God will enter their life, truly enter their life, and change. It's sad. But we can't change it. We cannot change what has happened. We can only go forward and try to change that what happened doesn't happen again in the future to some future generation. Don't let history repeat itself like that. But anyway, I hope y'all will keep Mandy and her family and that young man's family and his other children from his first wife's in your prayers with God. That God will guide them to Him, and pick them up, hold them, help them through this, because He will. He will. But anyway, I wanted to say that, ask you to keep them in your prayers, show you the prime example of how our choices can ruin the lives or build up the lives of others. Y'all have a blessed and wonderful day, and keep everybody that you know in your heart, and keep them safe. Do what's right for them when they're in your company, and when they're not in your company, keep them in your prayers. I love you. Have a blessed day.